Stand by for walking in GSI opening SMG RVT on audio roaming cam on standby and go.
Esports is one of the fastest growing sports in the world, and it's starting to take off in Southeast Asia.
Champions of Esports Tournament, the International, brought home more than $3 million each, making it the highest paying tournament in esports history.
A lot of organizers, TOs in particular, like to focus on the C countries that are easier to hit. Like it's easier to hit Indonesia because there's a lot more people there.
What in God's name is
Places like Europe and America, it's already quite established, but Singapore is still not at the forefront of esport gaming and video games in general.
We have been mocked a lot by our own people as well. You know, it's like Singapore esports has no hope. It's just a pastime.
A lot of people say Singapore esports not going to happen. It's not that it's not going to happen, but people need to give our players and our content creators a chance. In terms of an ecosystem, it feels like in Singapore, cost of living is expensive, keeping a team is expensive. That's why a lot of people are not giving these players a chance. They grind hours and hours on end to be good, but if there are no opportunities, it's not a realistic career path for them.
For production itself, or Singapore to actually get things done, or rather most of the items, is pretty expensive. So not a lot of people would put in a lot more effort to push for certain items in terms of like the standards of LCS, LEC.
When you want to strive for being the standard, which is something we very boldly said, we're trying to set the standard for GSI. You really want to deliver a certain result. You don't want to, not only do you not want to be a laughingstock, but you also want to show people what is possible in Singapore esports. The GSI stands for the Gym Singapore Invitational.
This GSI itself, so far is we're looking to actually gather more of the local attention.
GSI was a showcase project for the gym, showing off its ability to produce a premier level esports event even during COVID times.
It's very rare that you have a Singapore-only invitational, and this COVID situation, nobody really is able to travel out. Therefore, we're like, hey, it's a great chance to actually showcase our local talents.
We wanted to show Singapore esports that this level of production, this level of content was possible.
We took reference from overseas tournaments, and we sort of like mimic and add in our own flavors.
As a result, a lot of stops were pulled. We went all in on this. GSI started as a simple idea, like, hey, Valorant is a new game, why don't we do a simple 1,000 prize pool tournament, just to engage the community. But then as we went on with the meetings, people started getting more excited, and then the boss wanted to bring in PR.
Being able to enter that mainstream media that talks about esports definitely shifts the perspective to the video games. It's not just a waste of time.
Back then, the tournament prize was almost non-existent, probably at most $100.
We convinced the boss to say, yeah, you know what, let's add another zero behind that prize pool, make it 10,000, and we're gonna add in all the bells and whistles that one might expect from a normal esports event. So we drew a lot of references from established esports titles and events, and we tried to match it however we could in COVID times.
To date, this is like one of the biggest things so far, especially because, COVID. So far, everything I've done is pretty much online, and coming here and actually seeing the whole setup and actually seeing the players and everything, it's like, wow.
Because COVID-19 this year, it's been just casting from home.
And being able to meet these players in real life made me feel more excited, made me feel that this is really happening.
Here it was a proper studio setup, and you get to see all the different tools that you need to make it work.
We started by saying, what do we need to differentiate this esports event? Esports events are a dime a dozen. If you have enough money, you can hire a production team to basically broadcast and record your game. But what really stands out is the amount of content that we put into GSI. We filmed a lot of other extra content leading up to GSI and during GSI. For example, the hype trailer, where we went around Singapore. Because it was the Singapore Invitational, it made sense to go around Singapore, get a little bit of those landmarks with the professional players representing their teams.
Being able to personify these players, being able to see who these players are, giving them the personality is very important.
A lot of times in Singapore, we realize that esports players are no better than just a pair of hands, because they're not given any personality, they're not given a chance to shine and be loved. If you're looking to build a celebrity from an esports player, you need to give them a brand. You need to give them something for people to root for.
GSI has done a good job in showcasing these players in the intro video. We've done player interviews, we've done the trash talk, which is pretty fun. Really showcasing the personality of these players really brings out the identities of these players.
Integrating 3 levels is one of the ideas that came from the esports team.
Of course, due to COVID situation, everything got to stream online.
When you do streaming, you have too many variables, especially when you're doing a competitive esports tournament.
There were 3 floors in this building, and we had to engage every square inch.
We had to come together with a plan to actually send video and audio signals to and from in between all the 3 levels. Interview and the casters were all at the 2nd level, and the main tournament area is at level 1. So we have to have a good system where there is no latency, no lag, or interaction between level 1 and level 2, and of course the panelists at level 3.
Everything has to look nice on camera and also off camera, because we're taking photos. It has to work seamlessly together.
The most difficult part is actually to make sure everything and everyone works together in sync. In the event of a trip, we are still operational. We don't have to restart everything, only partial. But when it comes to streaming, for example GSI, we actually stream out the gameplay. Actually, your biggest nightmare is not the power, your biggest nightmare is actually your network.
The team picked up really fast, but the adjustment was definitely felt for week 1.
No ideas is bulletproof when you conceive it the first time. It is all about making sure that we get the system better and faster and more efficient.
That was what GSI was for, is for us to learn, make some mistakes, and at the end have something really awesome to show for it. A lot of talents that we brought in are also first time doing esports production or esports broadcast on a large scale. We wanted to give aspiring talents that have potential to have a try at a big level esports event in the highest difficulty setting possible. So they were a little nervous, so there was a bit of ice breaking that needed to happen on set, because there was nowhere else to really learn properly apart from just being thrown right into the deep end.
Live Center made me watch a lot of hosting videos like LEC and the Worlds events, and not only that, but I actually had to listen to Same Machine host, and then I transcripted his whole hosting gig word for word. month and I would do rehearsals with Lysander, just so that I would be more familiar with how to host for an esports program.
In preparing for the event, I think Lysander got us to come down a couple of times just to see, look at the plans, look at the teams, look at the video montages, and then also you get to see like the people behind the scenes pulling all the strings. You often see on the screen, but you never think, wow, this is what goes on behind the scenes.
This is it. There's the spike going down. I don't think he can do it. It's just such an impossible task, folks. There's Lears and going up the high ground. He goes down. Sespi will bring the championship home to Team SMG on Icebox. 13-9. SMG are your GSI 2020 champions.
GSI is giving the 4 teams that are being featured a chance to really prove themselves that Singapore esports is not dead, that Singapore esports can compete with the best of the best.
GSI has shown that Singapore teams are capable of producing high quality gameplay, as opposed to I think what many people would think, not just locally but also regionally.
1 week after or a few days later, it was actually mentioned on Reddit itself. It's not just like a Southeast Asia forum. It was a game forum specifically for Valorant itself. That had a pretty good traction. I'm very confident that that actually gave a lot of insights and exposure for all the teams that took part.
GSI definitely is putting a spotlight into these teams, really make them shine, and it really shows as well to businesses that the esports scene in Singapore is doable. There are players, there are people who watch GSI as well. There are people who are interested in these tournaments. So it is a statement, 1 for the players, 2 for tournament organizers, and 3 for the sponsors, that there is something here and we have to put in our effort to actually grow it.
Esports has been around for over a decade. It is time we caught up. This GSI, we set a new standard for Singapore esports.